While most farmers rely on store-bought fertilizers, the Amish have a different approach. Quiet, simple, yet incredibly effective. Without spending a penny, they create rich, powerful compost that keeps their soil healthy and crops thriving. But it's not just about saving money, it's about using everything wisely and letting nothing go to waste. Let's see how their old methods still work so well today. The concept of waste simply doesn't exist in traditional Amish communities. What most Americans discard without thought, the Amish view as valuable resources waiting to be properly utilized. This fundamental mindset difference translates into remarkable sustainability practices that modern homesteaders would be wise to adopt. What you call waste, we call misplaced resources, an Amish farmer explained during my research. The Creator provides everything we need. We just need the wisdom to use it properly. In Amish homesteads, there's a complete absence of trash bins overflowing with packaging and disposables that dominate most American homes. Each material has a designated purpose and place in their closed-loop system. Vegetable peelings and fruit cores go into compost buckets. Bread crusts and dairy scraps are directed to chicken feed. Even paper is carefully preserved for starting fires or composting. This isn't merely about being thrifty. The Amish worldview is fundamentally cyclical rather than linear. Resources aren't acquired, used once, and discarded. They're transformed continuously from one useful state to another. A broken wooden chair becomes garden stakes, worn cotton clothing becomes quilt patches, then cleaning rags, and finally, compost. Nothing ever becomes garbage because everything has inherent value. This perspective stands in stark contrast to our modern throwaway culture. According to environmental researchers who studied waste generation across different communities, the average Amish family produces less than 10% of the waste generated by typical American households. This isn't achieved through deprivation, but through thoughtful systems that recognize and preserve value. We don't think about recycling, an Amish woman explained. That implies something became waste first. We think about using things fully from the beginning. Amish gardens demonstrate this philosophy beautifully. What many would consider kitchen waste becomes the foundation for incredibly rich soil. Coffee grounds are worked into the soil around acid-loving plants. Eggshells are crushed and scattered to add calcium. Even fish bones and scraps from occasional creek catches are buried strategically to provide slow-release nutrients. Their kitchen scrap burial system is methodical. Different organic materials are buried in specific garden areas based on what will be planted there the following season. Potato peelings go where beans will grow next year. Fruit scraps feed next season's squash. This waste as resource mindset extends beyond the kitchen. In the barn, manure isn't treated as a problem to be managed, but as a valuable commodity to be carefully preserved. Straw, bedding, and animal waste are meticulously layered and stored to maximize nutrient retention. Even human waste is managed through carefully designed composting systems that, after proper aging and processing, eventually returns nutrients to woodlot areas, completing a cycle that modern sewage systems interrupt. What's most impressive is how seamlessly these practices are integrated into daily life. There's no special effort or inconvenience involved, just thoughtful systems developed over generations of careful observation and respect for resources. Amish children learn these practices from their earliest years. A 10-year-old automatically separates the different components from breakfast cleanup. Eggshells go into one container, coffee grounds into another, and apple cores into a third, each destined for a specific use in their regenerative system. The habits are so deeply ingrained that they require no conscious thought. We don't see ourselves as doing anything special, one elder reflected. This is simply how things should be done. Taking care of what we're given honors both the gifts and the giver. For the Amish, managing waste isn't an environmental statement. It's a spiritual practice reflecting deep gratitude for resources and responsibility to future generations. In conversations with Amish farmers, they never mention sustainability or environmentalism. Yet their practices embody these principles more authentically than many who claim these labels. The contrast becomes clear. What modern society calls waste management, recycling, or composting exists in Amish communities without labels, simply as the natural, respectful way to live in relation to materials. The wisdom in this approach offers profound lessons for those seeking to create more sustainable households, whether rural homesteads or urban apartments. The only product we'll ever promote on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, about 126 superfoods and preservation methods from crisis times like the Great Depression and wartime that are impossible to find elsewhere. We decided to promote his book because we are the last generation able to share these techniques and superfoods to our children or grandchildren. It would be a shame to see this information about highly nutritious foods and preservation methods to survive crises disappear. You can also find a book about herbal remedies from Nicole Apelian on their store. If you're watching this on TV, you can look up our channel, Frugal Solutions, on your phone or tablet and find the books by clicking the link in our channel description or any other video description. Let's talk manure. Not the most glamorous topic at dinner parties, but for Amish farmers, it's literally black gold. While most modern farmers rush to buy expensive chemical fertilizers, Amish communities have mastered the art of turning what animals leave behind into powerful plant food. The secret lies in understanding that not all manure is created equal. Horse manure brings plenty of carbon to the soil, helping create structure and feeding beneficial fungi networks. Cow manure offers a more balanced approach with moderate nitrogen and phosphorus. Then there's chicken manure, the powerhouse of the bunch, loaded with nitrogen that can supercharge plant growth. But here's where many beginners make a critical mistake. Fresh manure can actually kill plants rather than help them. The ammonia and salt concentrations are simply too high. The Amish know this well and practice something modern gardeners often lack: patience. Fresh is for next year, aged is for this year, goes an old Amish saying. This simple wisdom encapsulates their approach to manure management. Fresh manure gets collected according to a seasonal manure calendar that determines optimal collection times throughout the year. Spring cleaning of horse stalls yields manure that won't touch garden soil until the following growing season. Chicken manure collected in fall undergoes even longer aging periods because of its potent nitrogen content. Nothing is rushed. Everything follows nature's timeline. The aging process isn't just about letting manure sit around either. Amish farmers build their manure piles with architectural precision. Layers are carefully constructed to retain nutrients while allowing enough airflow to eliminate harmful pathogens naturally over time. The dimensions of these piles aren't random. They're typically kept about 5 feet high, tall enough to generate internal heat, but not so tall that the center becomes anaerobic and starts producing methane instead of beneficial compost. Straw coverings protect the piles from excessive rain that would leach away valuable nutrients. One particularly fascinating aspect of Amish manure management is how they can tell when it's ready simply by appearance, smell, and texture. Well-aged manure loses its original color and odor, transforming into a dark, crumbly substance that smells earthy rather than like animal waste. When you can crush it between your fingers and it feels like rich woodland soil, it's ready for the garden. Research from agricultural extension offices confirms what the Amish have known for generations. Properly aged manure can contain up to 90% more available plant nutrients than fresh manure while eliminating the risk of burning plants or introducing pathogens. It's science validated through centuries of observation. The financial implications are substantial too. A typical small Amish farm with just 2 horses, 4 cows, and a dozen chickens can produce enough manure annually to fertilize several acres of crops, representing thousands of dollars in fertilizer value that never appears on a balance sheet because nothing was purchased. Why would we buy what our animals give us for free? As one Amish farmer put it, in an era where a single bag of commercial fertilizer can cost upwards of $30, this approach makes both ecological and economic sense. Those looking to adopt these practices should start small. Even suburban homeowners with just a few backyard chickens can begin collecting and aging manure. 6 hens produce enough manure in a year to fertilize an average garden when properly aged, saving about $75 in store-bought fertilizer costs. And here's a little farmer humor. Why did the gardener stop using horse manure? Because his neighbors kept saying his tomatoes tasted like... Well, you know what? But jokes aside, the Amish approach to manure represents something profound. The recognition that in natural systems, outputs from one process become inputs for another. There is no waste, only resources temporarily out of place. This cyclical thinking transforms what modern society discards into the foundation of agricultural abundance. Steam rises from carefully constructed piles on a cold morning. Inside these humble-looking mounds, temperatures soar to 160 degrees without any external heat source. This isn't some modern technology, it's the ancient art of hot composting as practiced by Amish farmers for generations. Hot composting transforms ordinary manure into something extraordinary through managed decomposition. The chemistry happening inside these piles rivals what happens in professional laboratories, except nature provides all the equipment and labor for free. Composting isn't something we do to materials. It's something that happens when we create the right conditions, explains an elderly Amish farmer while turning a steaming pile with a pitchfork. His weathered hands work methodically, revealing layers of materials in various stages of decomposition. These piles aren't random heaps. They're carefully crafted recipes, combining manure with plant materials and soil in precise ratios. A typical mixture might include 2 parts aged manure, 1 part green material, like fresh grass clippings, 1 part brown material, like fallen leaves or straw, and a handful of mature soil that introduces beneficial microorganisms. The construction technique matters tremendously. Materials are layered rather than mixed, creating ideal pathways for air movement and microbial migration. The dimensions are crucial too, generally about 4 feet wide and 4 feet tall, which provides enough mass to retain heat while still allowing oxygen to penetrate the center. What happens next is remarkable. Microorganisms multiply by the billions, feasting on the carbon and nitrogen. Their activity generates intense heat, so much that if you thrust your hand into the pile's center, you'd risk serious burns. This natural furnace creates perfect conditions for rapid decomposition. The temperature gauges commonly seen in Amish compost piles aren't modern additions. They're simple wooden sticks or metal rods that get inserted and then touched by hand. When the rod comes out too hot to hold comfortably, the pile is working perfectly. Agricultural research confirms what Amish farmers have always known. Maintaining temperatures between 130 to 160 degrees for several days kills most weed seeds and pathogens while preserving beneficial biology. One study found that properly managed hot compost eliminated 99.9% of weed seeds and common plant diseases. The transformation is visible to the naked eye. What begins as recognizable bits of straw and manure gradually becomes unidentifiable, turning into a uniform dark substance with a pleasant earthy smell. When finished, you can't tell what went into it. Everything has become something new entirely. Monitoring this process requires all 5 senses. The Amish check for proper moisture, should feel like a wrung-out sponge. Smell should be earthy, never sour or ammonia-like. Temperature, warm but not hot in later stages. Appearance, dark and crumbly. And even sound, a properly aerated pile has a certain lightness when turned with a fork. Timing becomes critical for nutrient preservation. Turn the pile too often and you lose nitrogen to the air. Turn it too infrequently, and oxygen-deprived sections become anaerobic, producing methane and unpleasant odors. The typical schedule involves turning every 3 to 5 days during the active heating phase, then less frequently as the pile cools and matures. The finished product bears little resemblance to its starting materials. What was once simple manure becomes complex humus, teeming with beneficial microorganisms, stable organic matter, and plant-available nutrients. Laboratory analyses of Amish-made compost often show impressive diversity of beneficial fungi and bacteria, sometimes exceeding 20,000 species in a single handful. This microbial diversity translates directly to plant health. Plants grown in hot composted soil typically show greater disease resistance and higher nutritional content than those grown with synthetic fertilizers. A study comparing tomatoes found that those grown with properly aged compost contained up to 30% more vitamin C and significantly higher levels of antioxidants. For those looking to replicate these methods, the principles scale down effectively. Even an apartment dweller with a balcony can create a small hot compost system using a specialized bin designed for urban spaces. The key requirements remain the same: proper carbon to nitrogen ratio, adequate moisture, sufficient oxygen, and enough mass to generate and retain heat. One particularly amusing aspect of Amish composting is their smell check method for determining when compost is ready. The test: if you can't identify what went into it by smell, it's ready to use. As one farmer quipped, "If it still smells like yesterday's breakfast, it's not ready for tomorrow's garden." This alchemical transformation from waste to wealth represents something profound about Amish agriculture. Their recognition that fertility isn't something purchased, but something cultivated through patience, observation, and cooperation with natural processes. While many modern farmers write checks for fertilizer, Amish farmers write their success stories with carefully managed decomposition. The Amish approach to farming extends far beyond backyard gardens. Their field-scale operations demonstrate remarkable ingenuity through strategic cover cropping, a practice that transforms entire fields into natural fertilizer factories. Instead of leaving fields bare after harvest, Amish farmers immediately plant cover crops selected for specific soil-building properties. Legumes like crimson clover, hairy vetch, and field peas are favorites because they perform a remarkable chemical trick. They pull nitrogen straight from the air and convert it into plant food. This process, called nitrogen fixation, happens through a partnership between the plants and specialized bacteria living in little nodules on their roots. Together, they accomplish what would otherwise require expensive factory-made fertilizers. The economics of this approach are impressive. A single acre planted with crimson clover can naturally add about $300 worth of nitrogen to the soil. That's money that stays in the community rather than going to fertilizer companies. Beyond nitrogen, different cover crops bring different benefits. Daikon radishes, with their deep tap roots, break through compacted soil layers. Buckwheat scavenges phosphorus from the soil and makes it available to future crops. Rye develops massive root systems that prevent erosion while adding organic matter. The timing of when to kill these cover crops is critical to their success. Amish farmers watch plant development stages carefully, knowing that the nutrient content changes dramatically throughout the plant's life cycle. Most legume cover crops reach their maximum nitrogen content right as they begin to flower. At this moment, before seed production begins, the plants are terminated, either by mowing or plowing under, which releases their stored nutrients back to the soil. What's fascinating is that this system creates a carefully choreographed dance between cash crops and soil-building crops. A typical rotation might move from corn to small grains to hay and back again, with cover crops filling every possible gap. Some Amish farmers maintain detailed field journals tracking these rotations across decades, creating an intricate fertility management system that requires no outside inputs. Growing crops just to feed the soil seems backward at first, an older Amish farmer once told me. But it's like putting money in the bank. The land remembers your deposits and pays interest when you need it most. These field-scale techniques aren't just historical curiosities. Modern organic farmers increasingly adopt similar approaches, often using equipment the Amish would recognize. The key difference? While conventional agriculture often treats soil as merely something to hold plants upright while feeding them synthetic nutrients, the Amish view soil as a living system that requires careful nurturing and investment. One interesting twist in Amish cover cropping is their use of polycultures, mixtures of multiple cover crop species planted together. A typical mix might include clover for nitrogen, rye for organic matter, and radish for breaking compaction. These plant communities work in harmony, each species contributing something unique to the soil building process. The benefits extend beyond fertility. These living root systems feed soil microorganisms, creating healthier soil communities that suppress disease. The above-ground plant matter shades the soil, preserving moisture and preventing weeds from establishing. In winter, snow caught by standing cover crops insulates the soil from extreme cold, protecting soil life. For those wondering how this field-scale approach might work in smaller spaces, many market gardeners have adapted these principles using intensive succession-based systems. Quick-growing cover crops like buckwheat can transform garden beds in just 4 weeks, making them ready for the next vegetable planting with improved soil structure and fertility. These cover cropping techniques represent a perfect example of working with natural cycles rather than against them. By recognizing that plants themselves can be the most effective fertilizer factories, Amish farmers create a sustainable system that builds rather than depletes. Their approach shows us that sometimes the most effective technology isn't a new invention. It's simply a deeper understanding of processes that have worked for millennia. When winter winds howl across Amish farmland, wood stoves crackle with warmth in every home. But what happens to all that ash left behind? Rather than viewing it as waste, Amish households see these gray powdery remains as valuable garden gold, transforming winter's heating byproduct into summer's garden nutrient. Wood ash contains almost all the minerals that were in the original tree, except for nitrogen and sulfur, which burn off during combustion. These minerals include potassium, calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus, all essential plant nutrients. In effect, wood ash works as a slow-release mineral fertilizer and natural liming agent that raises soil pH, making it particularly valuable for acidic soils. Not all ashes are created equal, though. The Amish carefully separate hardwood ash from softwood ash, storing them in different containers. Hardwood ashes from maple, oak, and hickory contain higher concentrations of nutrients than softwood ashes from pine or fir. The difference matters enough that many Amish families label their ash buckets by wood type, creating a mineral resource library for specific garden needs. The storage of ash requires careful consideration. Unlike compost or manure, ash must stay dry to preserve its potency. Many Amish families keep covered metal containers in their barns specifically for ash collection throughout winter. Some even sift the ash to remove unburnt charcoal pieces, though others intentionally leave these carbon bits in as they improve soil structure. Application timing matters greatly. Spring gardens typically receive a light dusting of ash before planting, while fruit trees and berry bushes benefit from a winter application when plants are dormant. The Amish are careful never to mix wood ash with nitrogen fertilizers like manure. The resulting chemical reaction can release ammonia gas, wasting precious nitrogen. One particularly useful practice involves creating ash circles around plants that love alkaline conditions. Vegetables in the cabbage family, including broccoli, kale, and Brussels sprouts, thrive with a light ash application, while onions and garlic show remarkable improvement when given ash early in their growing cycle. I once watched my neighbor enthusiastically spread ash across his entire garden after discovering its benefits. His tomatoes soon developed yellow leaves and stunted growth, a classic sign of excessive alkalinity. "Too much of a good thing," the Amish farmer who sold us hay remarked with a knowing smile. "Ash should be measured in cups per garden bed, not buckets." This cautious approach reflects the Amish understanding that soil amendments require balance. Most Amish gardens receive perhaps 2 to 3 pounds of wood ash per 100 square feet annually, just enough to provide minerals without disrupting soil biology or pH too dramatically. For gardeners concerned about exact measurements, a simple guideline emerges from Amish practice. Apply enough ash to dust the soil lightly, like a first delicate snowfall, just barely visible on the surface. This conservative approach prevents over-alkalizing the soil while still providing valuable minerals. What makes the Amish use of wood ash particularly sustainable is its circularity. Trees grown on the property absorb minerals from deep soil layers. When these trees are harvested for firewood and eventually burned, their concentrated minerals return to the topsoil where garden plants can access them. It's a perfect example of nutrient cycling that requires no outside inputs. Wood ash also serves specialized purposes beyond general fertilization. A pinch added to carrot seed rows deters root maggots. A light dusting on potato leaves can discourage certain pests. Some Amish farmers even use it in compost piles when they're too nitrogen-rich and need balancing. For those without wood stoves, similar benefits can be achieved by collecting ash from neighborhood barbecues or community fire pits, though it's important to ensure the wood wasn't treated with chemicals before burning. Some garden centers even sell wood ash as garden lime, though it's generally more expensive and less potent than the homemade variety. The ingenious use of wood ash demonstrates a fundamental Amish principle. Everything serves multiple purposes. A tree provides shade, wind protection, wildlife habitat, lumber, firewood, and finally, through its ash, garden nutrients. This integrated thinking turns what could be waste into a valuable resource, completing natural cycles rather than disrupting them. As modern gardeners rediscover traditional practices, wood ash use stands out as one of the simplest to adopt. It costs nothing, reduces waste, and builds soil fertility with materials many households already produce. Perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that soil fertility doesn't necessarily require a trip to the garden center. Sometimes the best amendments are already within reach. Beyond solid compost and wood ash, Amish farmers have mastered another fertilizer category that flows rather than crumbles. These liquid fermented fertilizers, often called teas or brews, transform ordinary farm materials into potent plant nutrition through controlled fermentation processes. The basic concept mirrors how we make pickles or sauerkraut. Beneficial microorganisms break down organic materials without oxygen, extracting nutrients and creating compounds plants can immediately absorb. Unlike compost that feeds soil gradually, these liquid fertilizers deliver quick nutrition boosts directly through leaves and roots. The process begins with large wooden or plastic barrels filled with water. To this basic medium, Amish farmers add carefully selected ingredients depending on what nutrients they need. Manure tea starts with several shovelfuls of aged manure suspended in mesh bags, like giant tea bags steeping in water. Plant-based versions might use comfrey, nettles, or alfalfa, all mineral-rich plants that release their nutrients during fermentation. What happens next gets, well, aromatic. Over 30 days of anaerobic fermentation, the mixtures undergo dramatic transformations. The liquid darkens to a rich brown or black color while developing complex communities of beneficial bacteria and fungi. These microorganisms don't just extract nutrients, they also create plant growth hormones, enzymes, and compounds that suppress disease. On one farm I visited, barrels were arranged in a progression, each representing a different fermentation stage. The farmer rotated contents between barrels weekly, explaining this movement enhanced extraction by exposing different parts of the material to the fermentation process. The final barrel contained fully fermented liquid ready for use after proper dilution. Speaking of dilution, it's absolutely critical. Raw fermented fertilizers are far too strong for direct application. Most Amish farmers dilute their brews to the color of weak tea, usually about 10 parts water to 1 part concentrate. When properly diluted, these solutions can be sprayed directly on plant leaves where nutrients are absorbed through tiny pores, or watered into soil for root uptake. Different ferments serve different purposes. Manure teas provide balanced nutrition but excel at nitrogen delivery. Comfrey brews offer exceptional potassium, perfect for flowering and fruiting plants. Nettle fermentations create iron-rich solutions that green up yellow leaves. Each has its role in the seasonal garden symphony. The timing of application follows natural plant cycles. Early morning or evening applications minimize evaporation and maximize absorption. Young seedlings receive gentle, more diluted solutions, while established plants can handle stronger concentrations. Most impressive is how quickly plants respond, often showing visible improvements within days rather than weeks required for solid fertilizers. "You can almost see them drinking it in," remarked one Amish gardener, demonstrating with cucumber vines that seemed to perk up within hours after treatment. Not surprising when you realize these ferments deliver nutrients in forms immediately available to plants without requiring soil microbes to process them first. The fermentation barrels themselves become valuable microbial colonies. A portion of the previous batch often serves as a starter for the next, much like sourdough bread. This continuous culture approach preserves particularly effective microbial communities adapted to local conditions and crop needs. Despite their effectiveness, these ferments come with challenges, primarily odor. Anaerobic fermentation creates sulfur compounds that, frankly, smell terrible. Most Amish operations keep fermentation areas downwind of homes and cover barrels with loose-fitting lids that allow gases to escape while preventing rain entry. The smell dissipates quickly after application, especially when properly diluted. For those wanting to try this at home, start small. A 5-gallon bucket with weeds, kitchen scraps, or diluted manure makes a manageable experiment. Cover with water, stir occasionally, and wait 2 to 3 weeks. The resulting liquid should be strained and diluted before use. Just remember, if neighbors start complaining about smells wafting over the fence, you've probably taken your fermentation enthusiasm a bit too far. These liquid fertilizers represent an important principle in sustainable agriculture. Nutrients work best when cycling quickly through living systems. By accelerating decomposition through fermentation, Amish farmers create feeding systems that deliver precisely what plants need, when they need it, using materials that would otherwise take months to become available through conventional composting. As chemical fertilizer prices climb and environmental concerns grow, these time-tested fermentation techniques offer modern growers valuable alternatives. The Amish approach proves once again that sometimes the most effective technologies aren't new inventions but rediscovered wisdom from generations of careful observation and ingenuity. When most people think about chickens, they imagine breakfast eggs or Sunday dinners. But for the Amish, these feathered creatures serve as living agricultural tools that transform poor soil into productive ground. Through their natural behaviors, chickens become four-function soil improvement machines. They till, fertilize, control pests, and deposit beneficial microbes all at once. The magic happens through a system often called the chicken tractor, a bottomless movable coop that concentrates chicken activity in specific areas. These simple structures, typically built with lightweight wood frames and wire mesh, allow chickens to work a precise spot of ground before being shifted to the next area needing improvement. The name tractor is surprisingly accurate. These birds literally cultivate the soil through their scratching behavior. When confined in these portable structures, chickens express their natural instincts in ways that benefit the soil remarkably. Their constant scratching with powerful feet turns over the top layer of soil more gently than any mechanical tiller. Their eager consumption of insects, weed seeds, and plant parts controls potential problems before they start. Meanwhile, their manure, delivered fresh and continuously, provides immediate fertility exactly where needed. The timing of chicken movement proves critical to the system's success. Amish farmers watch carefully for the sweet spot when chickens have thoroughly worked an area, but before they've compacted the soil or eliminated all plant material. For most soils, this means moving the chicken tractor every 2 to 3 days, creating a patchwork of soil improvement across fields and gardens over time. The fertility impact of this approach is substantial. Just 8 productive hens can fertilize approximately 1/4 acre annually while simultaneously providing eggs and consuming problematic insects. Their manure delivers a balanced mixture of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the 3 macronutrients plants need most, along with trace minerals from their varied diet. Unlike commercial fertilizers that often deliver nutrients in water-soluble forms that can leach away, chicken manure releases nutrients gradually as soil microorganisms break it down. One fascinating aspect of chicken-based soil building involves the bird's gizzards, muscular organs containing small stones that grind food. As chickens consume soil particles along with seeds and insects, this grinding action actually helps break down mineral compounds into more bioavailable forms. They're essentially living mineral processors, making soil nutrients more accessible to future crops. The pest control benefits extend beyond just eating bugs. Chickens consume the larvae of many problematic insects that overwinter in soil, breaking pest life cycles. Their scratching behavior exposes other pests to predators and weather. Some Amish farmers time chicken rotations specifically to target seasonal pest emergence, like moving birds through garden areas just as squash bugs begin hatching. The first year after chicken preparation is good, an Amish farmer told me while demonstrating his chicken tractor system. But the second year, that's when you really see the difference. Something happens to soil that's been chicken worked that takes time to fully develop. That something likely involves complex soil food web development that continues long after the chickens have moved on. Soil scientists studying these systems have discovered that chicken-work soil contains significantly higher microbial diversity than conventionally tilled soil. The birds introduce beneficial microorganisms through their digestive tracts while creating ideal habitat conditions for soil life through their scratching and manuring. This biological richness translates directly to plant health through improved nutrient cycling and natural disease suppression. For gardeners with limited space, even a small chicken operation can make a big difference. 3 or 4 backyard hens rotated through garden beds during off-seasons can prepare growing areas for spring planting while reducing the need for purchased amendments. Their activity is particularly valuable in breaking down tough materials like corn stalks or sunflower stems that might otherwise take months to decompose. The chicken-soil connection illustrates a fundamental principle of Amish agriculture. working with natural behaviors rather than against them. Chickens scratch, peck, and manure, not because we train them to, but because that's what chickens do. By designing systems that channel these instincts productively, Amish farmers create partnerships where animals improve the land while simultaneously providing food for the community. Modern adaptations of this approach include specialized chicken tractors with wheels or skids for easier movement, sectional designs that allow for precise soil treatment, and integration with vegetable rotation systems. Some market gardeners now schedule chicken rotations as regular components of their soil management plans, using the birds as both land preparation crews and supplemental income sources. This chicken-centered approach to soil building demonstrates how livestock can be positive forces in agriculture rather than environmental challenges. In an era where confined animal operations often create waste management problems, the Amish method transforms animals into soil-building allies that complete natural cycles rather than disrupting them. Soil fertility in Amish communities extends far beyond individual farm boundaries. These close-knit societies have developed sophisticated resource-sharing networks that maximize fertilizer production while minimizing waste throughout entire communities. At the heart of these networks lies a fundamental understanding. What constitutes waste on one farm often represents a valuable resource for another. This principle creates natural exchanges where materials flow to where they'll provide the greatest benefit. Sawmill operators, for instance, don't view sawdust as a disposal problem, but rather as a carbon-rich resource that neighboring farms can use to balance nitrogen-heavy compost piles. These exchanges happen through both formal and informal channels. Barn raisings and community workdays often include discussions about who has excess manure, who needs wood chips, or whose fields could benefit from lime applications. These conversations lead to arrangements benefiting all parties. The dairy farmer with too much manure connects with the vegetable grower needing fertility, while the orchard keeper shares fallen leaves with someone building soil carbon. The interconnectedness of these systems creates remarkable efficiency. When one Amish farmer slaughters animals, the blood and offal don't become waste. They transform into high nitrogen fertilizer through composting with carbon materials from another farm. When a woodworker generates shavings, they become bedding material in a neighbor's chicken coop before eventually reaching garden beds as nitrogen-enriched compost. Modern homesteaders and urban gardeners can adapt these community-based approaches even without living in traditional agricultural communities. Neighborhood compost cooperatives allow apartment dwellers to collectively process food scraps into garden amendments. Garden sharing groups match landowners who lack time for cultivation with eager gardeners who lack space. Tool libraries enable communities to collectively own and maintain equipment that individuals might use only occasionally. The best fertilizer systems are the ones that span property lines, an elder explained during my visit to an Amish community in Pennsylvania. Good soil is never made alone. It takes many hands working with many materials. His barn contained sorting areas for different community resources. One corner for collecting eggshells that would eventually be crushed for calcium amendments, another for gathering coffee grounds from a nearby non-Amish cafe to add to compost piles. Setting up similar exchange networks in conventional communities has become easier with technology. Social media groups dedicated to garden resource sharing help connect those who have excess materials with those who need them. Community bulletin boards, both physical and digital, facilitate exchanges of leaves, grass clippings, manure, and other fertility-building materials. Some urban areas now have formalized master composter programs where trained volunteers help coordinate community-wide compost production efforts. The joke about networking among gardeners is that it's the only place where someone might genuinely get excited when you offer them a truckload of horse manure. And frankly, a gardener who doesn't appreciate that offer probably hasn't experienced the transformative power of good organic matter. Industrial byproducts often find new purpose through these networks. Breweries produce spent grain that makes excellent compost ingredients. Coffee roasters generate chaff that adds valuable carbon to soil mixes. Food processors create organic waste streams that can be diverted to agricultural use rather than landfills. The Amish have long recognized these opportunities, creating relationships with neighboring businesses that benefit both parties. What makes these resource networks particularly valuable is how they close material loops across entire communities. Nutrients cycle continuously rather than flowing linearly from production to waste. Food scraps from community meals become compost that grows more food. Tree trimmings become mulch that builds soil for future trees. Animal bedding becomes garden fertility that grows animal feed. This circular approach mirrors natural ecosystems where outputs from one process become inputs for another. For those interested in establishing similar systems, starting small yields the best results. Begin by identifying just one or two potential exchange partners, perhaps a neighbor with grass clippings your garden could use, or a local stable producing manure you could compost. As these initial exchanges prove beneficial, the network naturally expands as participants recognize additional opportunities. The community-centered approach to soil fertility represents one of the most transferable aspects of Amish agricultural wisdom. It demonstrates that sustainable agriculture isn't just about technique, it's about creating relationships and infrastructures that support continuous improvement of the land. By recognizing that resources flow most effectively through connected systems rather than isolated operations, Amish communities create resilience that individual farms alone could never achieve. This networked approach to fertility management offers a powerful model for addressing larger agricultural sustainability challenges. It suggests that the most effective solutions may not involve new technologies or products, but rather new connections between existing elements in our communities. While field-scale practices build soil across acres, Amish gardens demonstrate sophisticated techniques at smaller scales. Their fundamental principle is elegantly simple: soil should never remain bare. Living walkways distinguish many Amish gardens from conventional ones. Instead of bare paths, they plant nitrogen-fixing clovers and low-growing ground covers that prevent erosion, reduce mud, support beneficial insects, and add fertility to adjacent beds. When walkway plants grow too tall, gardeners trim them and use clippings as green mulch for nearby beds. Within beds, strategic interplanting maximizes both space and fertility. Fast-maturing crops grow alongside slower ones, filling potential weed spaces while creating beneficial microclimates. Root systems of harvested quick-growing plants remain in soil, contributing organic matter below while their tops become surface mulch. The chop and drop technique represents another cornerstone of Amish garden management. Plant material removed during maintenance gets chopped into small pieces and dropped directly onto the soil surface, mimicking forest floor ecology. Some gardeners have perfected this approach so thoroughly they rarely remove any organic material from growing spaces. Companion planting includes species specifically chosen for mulch-producing abilities. Comfrey, with its deep mineral-mining roots and prolific leaf growth, often occupies garden edges where it can be repeatedly harvested for mulch without interfering with food crops. For immediate soil improvement, some gardeners practice direct burial of kitchen scraps, a surprisingly effective technique. Small holes dug between established plants receive coffee grounds, eggshells, and vegetable trimmings. These materials decompose directly where needed, feeding nearby plants while attracting earthworms. Despite all this organic material, these gardens don't become waterlogged messes. One elderly gardener demonstrated this by having me walk across her heavily mulched garden after a rainstorm. My shoes came away nearly clean, as the sponge-like soil had absorbed water rather than turning muddy. The results become increasingly evident over time. Soil develops remarkable qualities: rich, dark, and crumbly, teeming with life. Water infiltrates easily rather than running off, while moisture retention improves dramatically. Plants grow with vigor, showing fewer pest and disease issues as overall system health improves. Modern gardeners are adopting similar techniques through permaculture, no-dig gardening, and sheet mulching approaches. For those wanting to establish such systems, start by identifying potential mulch sources in your environment. Begin with a single bed, layering cardboard over existing vegetation, and adding organic materials on top. Throughout Amish agriculture, this principle remains consistent. Fertility doesn't come primarily from purchased products, but from thoughtfully managing what's already available. The Amish prove that you don't need to spend money to grow good food. By using what they already have, they keep their soil healthy and their farms strong. It's a smart, natural way of farming, and something we can all learn from.